find the domain of a rational function, we need to find those values of x that would make the denominator equal to 0, and then leave those values out of the domain. So the domain would be all real numbers except for things that would make the denominator equal to 0. So in order to find those values, we go ahead and just take the denominator and set it equal to 0. Solving this equation will show us what numbers to leave out of the domain. So we can solve this a couple different ways. I could add 25 to both sides and do the square root of both sides, making sure I use plus or minus. Or I can go ahead and just factor this. So x plus 5 times x minus 5, and set each factor equal to 0. And solve each of those two equations, which is going to give us x equals negative 5 and x equals positive 5. So these are the only two numbers that are not in the domain. So the domain is all real numbers except those. And so there's a couple of different ways we can write that. We can use set notation, which would look like the set of all x such that x does not equal negative 5 and 5. So we want to make sure and get that does not equal 2 in there. Or we could write it using interval notation, and so our interval would start at negative infinity and go up to negative 5. We want to make sure and leave out the negative 5, so we would indicate that using parentheses, and then start right back up again at negative 5 and go to 5 and leave it out again using parentheses, and then go from 5 to infinity. So that essentially, from complete left to right says negative infinity to infinity. We're only leaving out the negative 5 here and the 5 there. So either one of those options, of course that first way is a lot more concise, but either one of those are valid options for writing the domain.